Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. I'm Beatriz Mourad, and today I'm joined by Michelle Anderer.
Hello.
And April Collins.
Hi there.
Today we will be discussing the 13th episode of Fruits Basket. How have you been, my brother? Warning, spoilers for everything that has aired up to this point. Some of us have read the manga, some of us have seen the early 2000s version of the anime, but we won't be spoiling anything beyond episode 13. You can find out more about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can subscribe to us on iTunes at overlyanimated.com/iTunes. You can find us on Spotify, the link is in the website, or on YouTube at youtube.com/overlyanimated. All right, girls, tell me. There's a lot that happened. Tell me, what are your thoughts on this episode? Like, just general thoughts.
It was a lot.
Yeah. Agame was a lot. Like, to be clear, he's so extra.
I loved him though.
Yeah. No, he's a fun time.
Yeah. But he's my favorite character, so I was super excited about this
really?
He's your favorite?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I had completely forgotten he existed.
I forgot about him too.
Like, people need to understand how I'm kind of worried because of how little I remember of this manga. Like, it's been 10 years, granted, since I read it, but still, it is shocking how little I remembered. And when I saw the screen cap of him, and I was like, why isn't Yuyasha on this show?
Oh my god.
And then I clicked on it, and that was a reference to Steve. He made that comment, and I was like, aha, it's true. He does look like Inuyasha. But yeah, and I was like, why is he on the show? Who is this? And then the episode got taken over, which I feel like is very fitting for his character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, that's, like, I felt exhausted by the end, but I'm like, I can't imagine him being introduced and not having this happen.
Like, it was like, you're exhausted. It's like whenever you have like a weekend full of like a lot of like good activities, like you're hanging out with friends and you're doing this and like all of these things, and like you're exhausted at the end of the weekend, but like you're like, I had a great weekend. So that's kind of how I feel about this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, Michelle, any kind of general things to add before we dive in?
I didn't expect Yuki to have any siblings for some reason. He just seemed like such an only child. But this makes sense, right? Because if Aya is 10 years older than him, then he kind of was an only child in a sense, because they were in they were such different places growing up in their lives. And he didn't really even acknowledge him much as a younger brother when they were growing up, which is a lot. But I mean, I'm curious. Does Kyo have any siblings?
Yeah.
I wonder.
Yeah. I'm low key hurt because I was so on the ship of not ship as in shipping, but ship as in a boat. I was on the boat that I was like, okay, Akito is totally Yuki's brother in some capacity.
No.
They look too much alike. Okay, Toru literally goes when she sees Ayame, she goes, oh, it's the adult version of Yuki.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, okay, but Akito looks more like Yuki. Is this just something that the show is making the way that they're drawn, is that for the audience?
I think that's an accident.
Oh man! See, I don't
think it's an
accident. I don't thinking it's an accident. I like thinking maybe it was oh no, even for the characters they look different, but for the audience they want you to think they look similar.
Oh.
Maybe it was on purpose, but I don't know. This is getting really meta. But they're maybe for the audience they want Akito and him to look alike, but for the show, but in reality they actually don't. I don't know. I just was really oh, they're brothers, and Akito's evil and all this, and man,
he's the evil twin.
Yeah, that could be so cool. I feel that's totally a trope of a telenovela, which I'm totally down for, but also. This is practically this is a drama, obviously, but yeah, I am it. the episode opens with Yuki and Toru gardening, which again, squeal. Like this is Yuki's space. Like
she gets so excited about the strawberries.
She's so excited.
So adorable.
Like so excited. And not only that, but I think it's like really funny how we start in Yuki's safest space. Without knowing that here comes the thing that's going to make him feel as completely, like, that's just going to make him feel, what's that word? It's not unsafe, but rattled. Pun intended, because get it, rattlesnakes. Oh, okay. But yeah, so I just thought that was, like, really cute, and then, you know, it's only been a couple days since the whole, like, Akito thing. And then here comes the snake slithering up Toru's dress, which that needs to
poor April.
That needs to, like, it's interesting because it's interesting because I like Ayame much more than I like Shigure, which is
there's a reason for that,
and there's a reason, and it's why, because everyone is calling out. Ayame gets like no one gives him anything. They're just like, no one gives him anything. They're like, you're ridiculous. It's absurd. Like, the way it's being, what's that word? The way that it's being, like, what's that verb? Presented, exactly. It just, it
or
gives
like
off a different feeling. Exactly. It gives off a different feel, because here, like, especially that first time that Shigure was like, oh, I'm gonna go and, like, perv around these high school girls. People maybe made a face. No one said anything, though. They were just like, okay, that's just him being him. With Ayame, they're not even being like, oh, that's just him being him. They're like, no, like, you need to stop. So maybe that's the reason
why? I thought. No, I totally took it as like, well, he's so coded, like, with like these like kind of effeminate signifiers, like the long hair, his outfit. I totally assumed it's because like he's a very, you know, gay character, so the fear isn't that he would actually do anything to her even in his animal form, and that's why it's inherently less threatening, which is not a good reason, but that was kind of the vibe I was getting from it.
Okay, I mean, I can't, maybe it's, I didn't read him, like, until that scene, I didn't read him as, like, I didn't read it as him being extremely coded as gay. If anything, I was like, oh, this is like it wasn't like, say, Hatsuharu, where it was like, no, I'm in love with Yuki, like, he was my first love, and this is like, I mean this. It was more of like, okay, like, he was like in this weird space where I was like, okay, are you just effeminate, or I don't know, and I'm not gonna make the assumption. And then later, he kind of was like, I don't know if it's even necessary to label him.
I don't know. I mean, it's ambiguous the way he talks about Hattori, but if it's got to be anyone, I have a feeling he might have feelings for him.
Oh, no, he totally does. In that sense, he does. I'm saying in terms of his sexuality, I'm like, I don't know if there's a label for it, because he does play both. He was totally like, like, you know, he knows how to play, he knows how to make everybody uncomfortable with, like,
or it's like desires. He knows how to be charming.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, he's very like sex positive is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so I'm like,
so
he's very sex positive is the best way to say it. So that's why like I'm like, I could see him being like fluid in his sexuality. With his sexuality, which is, but that's like that's beside the point. I do think also him and Hattori are a thing, or like he wants it to be a thing. But
I think it's also like disarming, because he, like, it's gonna sound really bad when I say this, and I'm already prepared for this, but like, he had a good, and like, it wasn't like he was doing it out of like perversion, he was doing it out of survival.
But I mean, that's also kind of questionable.
Well, I mean, because like, he literally told, like, I don't like think it was like a sneaky thing he did, but like his whole thing, like, you know, snake will die if it's cold. Like, I think that's a little dramatic, but like, it is true that reptiles are cold-blooded, so he just like, he didn't want to be cold, and so he would rather be on somebody if he could.
I think the other, like, I guess supporting evidence of that is that whenever Hattori is a seahorse, he has to be in water. It doesn't matter if it's fresh or cold, but he still has to be in water. So I'm like, okay, so there's still like something to it. You know what I mean? Like, so I guess I can kind of like see it being slightly truthful, especially given that like Hattori has to be in water.
I mean, I don't disagree that I think it's truthful that he turns because it gets cold. Yeah. And that makes him sensitive to the cold. But I don't know if it's like, oh, so that gives him the right to slither up a girl's dress.
Well, no. No one ever has the right to do that.
Unless she wants them to. unless consent is given, then no problem. Which the second time it happens, consent was given, even though he kind of was like, the way it was portrayed, it's like she made it seem like, oh, like, he was like, telling me of how he was gonna die because of the cold. So I was like, sure, why not? Is kind of how she described it. But my thing, just to respond to Michelle's point about how because he was like coded as gay, it was not as bad. I kind of fall into the camp of like, I don't care what your sexuality is, you shouldn't get into someone's space without their permission.
No, like that's what I mean though. Like the show doesn't want us to think it's as bad. They're like, that's part of why it's not like, it doesn't feel as like uncomfortable. Because like Shigeru he never says like gross up in front of Toru. It's always when he's around like another guy, and they're the ones that are like, I don't know, you're so creepy, you're gonna go to jail one day. But like it's different with Aya, because I feel like for him, like the inherent danger isn't really there for Toru. But like with Kyo, when he wakes up and he's in his bed, like he takes that very seriously and he's very upset. And I feel like there's just like things that are being said here, and I think that's like interesting because I don't necessarily feel the way about it that the show might want me to, but that's because like objectively, it's still not great. Right. But we're not supposed to see it as a threat.
Right. I see. But beside this kind of intro, because I guess that kind of was his introduction, which is like kind of really upsetting. I'm like, but beside that, what were your first impressions of Ayame? Kind of a little bit more deeper. Like, for instance, like for me, I was like, he's so tall and his hair is so long, and like
he's very gorgeous.
Yeah. Like Yuki, you should grow your hair long.
Grow your
that's
hair
why
long.
he doesn't. Maybe that's why his hair is
short.
He
doesn't.
like,
Absolutely,
like my brother.
Absolutely, yeah. But what were you gonna say, April?
Oh, just that he's very gorgeous, and so like I want to be that pretty.
Like, wouldn't it be nice to just be like, oh, what would it be like to be so pretty?
Right. And it appeals to like both of my sexualities, so I'm like, all right, like I'm into this. Like I feel bad for being so attracted to him, but I am.
That's why
don't feel bad. Androgyny is very attractive. Androgyny is like super attractive. It's the best of both worlds.
Exactly. So, but no, and I just love like, I don't know. I don't like drama or anything like that, but I love like how dramatic of a person he is. It's just really great. Yeah. And like, I guess like, I can't like 100% relate to him, but I kind of like get like, oh, like he feels bad because like, first off, like him and Yuki are 10 years apart and he had like no choice in that. So like, that's not his fault that they're that separated. But like at the same time, like it's nice that he wants to try and like make amends and everything like that, because he may not have necessarily, I mean, he kind of knew what was going on with Yuki, but like it was so outside of his control at that point. Like he couldn't really do anything, and he can't be blamed for that. So
yeah. Do you guys think that he, especially in the beginning, because for instance there was like for like the first time, like when he makes like that joke of like, oh, you're a princess, but treats her like a maid, and then Yuki like gets angry at him, but then that allows him to like take Toru away to take her on a lunch date and like actually get some alone time with her. Do you think that he plays up that extraness, or at least in the beginning he used kind of that image, that idea that everybody has of him being so extra, and just was like, I'm gonna like use this to my advantage and I'm gonna get my way and get some alone time with Toru? Or was it more spontaneous and he's not that calculating?
I think it would be great if I thought he was that calculating. But I feel like, I don't know, like it could have been, because it seems like everyone's like very much like seeking out to see Toru because she's kind of like a big deal in the family. So, and I mean, I guess he was like truthful in the fact that he said that, oh, like I came out here to check on Yuki, but also I wanted to see Toru. So I mean, I could see him like calculating it out. And I feel like sometimes people who are that like sporadic and like sort of all over the place are sometimes more put together than they may seem, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Michelle, do you see any value, like, is there anything worth exploring with the flirting that's going on between Ayame and Shigure? Is it worth talking about, or is this just funny banter?
It's just funny banter. But it also makes me a little, like, grouchy, because it's like, Shigure, look, you have these close people who are your age. Why don't you, like, maybe start something with them? And they already like you. It's perfect. Why don't you? Because now we know exactly how old she. Like, I know this is not a Shigure episode, and I know like all those Shigure girls are just gonna be so mad every time we talk about Shigure. But like now it's getting he's like 10 years older than them. So like just fine. Like hook up with Aya and stop like creeping on high schoolers. Problem solved. There you go.
Here we go.
Nice 25, 26-year-old your own age. Perfect.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's it.
Shigure does seem like very, very straight though. At least from everything we've been presented.
Yeah. I agree.
He's a tease.
He is a tease, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, we do learn that Hattori and Shigure, like I guess Aya was the other one who had that dream where they all cried.
Yeah, we thought it was some girl, but
we thought it was some girl, but nope, it was Ayame. But so they're all 10. Do you think that they're older or younger than Akito?
Oh my god.
Oh.
Like, because that would be like, if they're older, that would be an interesting kind of dynamic of like, oh, like you're younger, but you're like the head of the house, and we have to serve you and blah. But then if he's older, then it kind of makes like, I don't know. It's just, you know how we've been theorizing about how like, is it that Akito like chose them and that's how they became the Zodiacs? Were they born it? Were like trying to understand the curse of the Zodiacs. That would be some interesting information. So Fruits Basket, please tell us eventually where. Yes.
So I feel like that would kind of make sense though, because if how old were they whenever they all had that dream? Do we remember?
6 or something?
Like, 6 to 7.
Okay. So let's say that they're 6 years older than Akito, right? So maybe Akito, whoever he is in this family, maybe it didn't take until his part was reborn in order for the curse to like start. And so that would then explain like why they all had the same dream all at the same time. And if like all of their transformations started at the same time, that would make a lot of sense. Like if Akito is younger than them, because it takes until like that person in the family to be born to then like trigger the curse almost.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That would make perfect sense.
Yeah. That's my theory. Who knows if we'll ever get it answered, but that's what I
like that theory. I'm for that theory.
And and that would explain why Akito looks like so close in age to everybody. Like
because he's in the middle.
Yeah, because he's in between. So because he looks kind of like Yuki's age, maybe like a couple years older, but he also looks close to like Shigure and Hattori. And Aya's age too. So like being in the middle would explain that just a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. So we learn a lot of things, especially during the lunch date between him and Toru. 10 years apart, we know from Yuki. Yuki was quarantined since birth, and it's like partly because he was sick. We kind of already figured that out.
The other part, I swear.
I get it is. It's like he's the other part for sure. But so it's that question. Like, okay, do you think it's the age difference that's the fault, or is it the separation? Because I often when I meet people who are so have such a large age difference from their siblings, they either fall into two categories. They usually just become like a second parent. So was this surprising to you that like they're so distant? Is it because of the age difference, or is it because of the quarantine? Is it a mixture of both? Because I've also met some people that because the age difference is so wide, there's kind of this kind of friction that they just don't know how to communicate or something. I don't know. Where do you fall in trying to understand this rift between these two brothers?
I think it's a mixture for sure. Like, I know me and my sister are nearly 5 years apart, and that meant we had a lot of trouble getting along growing up because we were always in different places in life. Like, it wasn't until our 20s that we were really able to be, like, kind of on the same page for the first time. So to me, it makes total sense. Like, if it's a combination of, like, 10 years is a lot, especially when you're a kid, like, every year feels like such a big deal because you've only been alive for, like, so long, you know?
Yeah.
So if your kid brother is, like, always sick anyway, and he's so much younger than you feel like you probably can't relate to him. So I feel like it makes total sense that he would just kind of drift in and out of Yuki's life and not really think about it. And I think also for Yuki, it makes sense that he, like, because Toru asked him if he, like, hates his older brother, and he's like, well, it's not that. I just, like, I don't really ever know what he's thinking. Like, he always just sees him as, like, this older, cooler, distant figure that he, like, just doesn't really know on a personal level. And I feel like that totally makes sense, too, because if you're the younger kid, like, you really look up to your older sibling because, like, they're smarter than you and they're older and they know all this stuff. But if they don't like you or they don't have time for you, like, that makes you kind of sad, too. And, yeah, like Ayame is saying, like, the rift kind of grows on both sides, like, the longer that happens. Like, the less you know of them, the more kind of, like, you don't know if you want to know them. But I think it's great that he realizes as, like, the older sibling, like, it's kind of in his best interest to try to curb that divide sooner rather than later at this point, even if he does it in, like, a really bad way by telling all these stories that are freaking out the poor young teenagers more and more with each crazy story he tells them, and it attempts to relate to them at all. It's, like, hilarious, but, like, at least he's, like, really trying now, and I think, like, that's why Toru thinks there's still hope that they could get there eventually.
Right. And April, do you think that that because we saw that little brief flashback between, like, where kind of when Ayame just kind of pushes Yuki away, just physically just creates the space between them. Is it because do you think he's partly disgusted by Yuki? Do you think that, like, at least when he didn't know any better, when he himself as a kid saw him being quarantined and thought there must be something wrong with him? Or like, why is Akito so obsessed with this guy? Like, there's, like, you're weird. Or is it more of just simply, like, I don't know you, get away from me? Like, how do you interpret that little flashback, and how do you interpret this rift?
It could be just, like, I agree that it's definitely a combination of, like, the age and then, like, the whole quarantine thing. Because, like, we already know that, like, you know, Yuki is Akito's favorite, for whatever reason. Hopefully we find out. But, like, so there's, like, that whole side of it, but then there's also, you know, the whole age difference, because you have to kind of think about it in terms of numbers, is that, like, okay, Yuki's 6, which means Aya's 16, which means he's going through, like, first off, like, he's already a teenager with all of those, like, raging hormones, and you know, like, being in school and all of that stuff, and then, like, to be a Zodiac member on top of that, like, so, like, he's very distracted, I think. And so, like, he didn't, like, since there was not ever an opportunity to cultivate a relationship with his brother, like, it you know, it's probably just, like, it was probably a moment, like, a lapse of judgment for him to push him away, just because he's probably acting out in some type of way, because he's like, this is you know, Akito's pet, like, but he's my quote unquote brother, like, get away from me, like, go away. Especially because they recognize, like, Akito's, like, a horrible person. So, like, right. I wouldn't want, like, it's probably a self-preservation thing, too. Maybe not necessarily because Yuki's sick, because I'm still not, like, utterly convinced that, like, Yuki is was as sick as a child as, like, everyone, like, Akito probably made him out to be. I think that's probably, like, a manipulation thing. But for Aya, it's probably self-preservation, because, like, why would I associate with someone who is so closely associated with like this horror, this horrible person in my family that causes nothing but like stress and terror for everyone else. Like I like, it sounds bad to say, but I don't blame him for pushing Yuki away because like, you're 16 and you're invincible, but you're also a Zodiac member. So you're just trying to like get through each day. I'm sure.
Right.
I don't know if I buy that as a reason. I think honestly, like the age difference is enough. If you're 16-year-old, having your little 6-year-old brother like try to cling to you feels disgusting and obnoxious, and you just don't want it, period. Like, I honestly think it might not have anything to do with him being sick or the Soma relationship. I think he's just like, he's a teenager. He doesn't have time for his annoying little brother because they're at such different ages. And he's just like, oh, don't grab my arm. Go away, you. Like, I honestly think like it might just be that that general of a reaction from an older brother.
It totally could be. But like, no, I agree with that too. I think it could be either one, honestly.
Right. Do you guys think, okay, because he says that like they've always been distant, but did they see each other often? Because that's because it's different to say like, oh, we've never been close, but that doesn't necessarily mean, oh, we didn't see each other at all. Because Yuki was quarantined, but I'm just curious about did he know how horrible Akito was treating Yuki? Like, was this a secret that like was it at any point a secret? Or was this just something everyone knew had always been a thing? Or was it like, did he always like realize that Akito was abusing Yuki? Or was it kind of like he found out later and then regrets it? Because he does know now that the terror that Yuki feels for Akito doesn't compare to how they fear Akito. But like that Yuki has like I guess I should have said it backwards because this implies that they fear him greater. No, Yuki's fear of Akito is much greater than anyone else's. So it's kind of like I'm just trying to struggle with the fact like, here is your sibling. I mean, granted, the Soma family is pretty messed up already, so I'm trying not to apply normal family logic, but I'm just trying to wrap my hand around how if he had known all this time. Like, there has to be that kind, like, the whole point of Toru, like, looking, like, being like, oh my god, he had, like, a brotherly smile. Part of being a brother, a sibling, is being protective. And I'm just curious, like, where, like, did he, like, if he had known that
I was gonna say, I feel like his use of the word distant kind of, like, appropriately answers that question. Because I feel like if, like, he had used the word, like, oh, I didn't really know Yuki. We never really saw each other. If he had phrased it like that, then that would, like, suggest that, like, he didn't, that would just suggest that. I think if he said me and Yuki weren't really close, that would suggest that him and Yuki had a lot of interaction. They just didn't, like, connect. But, like, distant is a really unique way to phrase that because it sort of signifies that, like, I knew my brother existed and I didn't, like, have the opportunity to be close to him. Plus, like, the whole age thing, like, definitely, like, would put in that because, again, like, we keep reiterating, like, 10 years is a huge difference in age. And so, distant answers that question for me. I don't feel like he really knew, because I feel like everyone had, like, felt some type of wrath of Akito, and so I don't think he knew the extent that it was. But, like, he wasn't close enough to his brother also, and probably didn't see him enough to, form that protective bond over him.
Right.
Yeah, plus it's Akito, right? Like, if he can almost blind somebody and nobody stops him,
right?
Yeah,
he can do other things like this without any repercussions.
Totally. Totally. I guess that answered the question, because I was just like, okay, like, why did he go to, I mean, we kind of talked in the previous part about why Yuki went to Shigure. And now that we know he had a brother, it's like, why didn't you go to your brother? But maybe it's because you just never saw him. So he never had the chance to go to his brother because he just wasn't available.
Yeah.
So here's a question. I kind of struggled with understanding the way that Ayame was trying to explain why he's trying to, like, make amends with Yuki. When he was explaining to Toru, he said, like, I'm not doing this out of regret. I'm doing this out of repentance. And I'm curious, I just don't understand the difference. How did you interpret that line? Like, why is he doing it? If it's not regret, then why is he trying to, like, he said that he's just trying to let his younger self off the hook. So
I think that means that, like, and if you regret something, you kind of admit that you can never really fix the damage, but you can just try your best moving forward to make as much amends as you can. But repentance implies, like, if you do enough, then maybe you will have reached a point where you can be forgiven for the past. So maybe that's just, he wants to, like, it's like, all right, if I pay my dues and act like a good big brother, that will reach a point where all will be forgiven and the slate will be wiped clean. But regret is like, nah, I mean, like, you messed up and you'll always have that, but you can still do good in the future.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like, you can't change the circumstances with regret, but with repentance, you can.
And I think it also, I think there's a lot of, I had a really good thought and it left my brain. But I think with, like, regret, it's kind of more like you are owning more of your fault in that situation. Whereas but you have no real intentions or see that or feel that there's no opportunity for, like, forgiveness or to make amends. Whereas, like, repent is like you are looking to make amends and repair, like, the damage that's been done. Or at least that's kind of how I'm interpreting that, is that, like if he just regretted it, it would just be like him, like, accepting that's what happened and then, like, that just moving on. Whereas he wants to make amends, which is more so like he's trying to fix, like, the broken relationship or, like, the damage done.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Also, the whole thing of, like, he, in a way, because it's interesting how he kind of, because he's not saying, it's not that he doesn't want to admit he's wrong. It's interesting because he wants to show compassion to his younger self. In that it's like, you were a teenager. Like, what, like, you couldn't have been perfect. Like, but at the same time, so it was interesting, like, when Toru kind of started going, like, you were a teenager, but don't forget of how you were as a teenager. And, like, that's why, like, I kind of, like, just couldn't really understand how she made that jump and being like, because I was like, wait, but when did he say that that he was, like, completely separate? But let's talk about that wisdom that Toru kind of instilled on him. She basically says, like, you can do this. It's not too late to make amends. Like, even if you failed, like, it's okay. And tries to tell him to not forget of how he felt as a child, because that he could use to meet Yuki in the middle, meet him halfway. But how did you guys feel about the moral of the episode, which is her story with her mother once again? Did you find it as touching as previous ones? Not to compare it, but what did you think and how it unfolded?
It's not my most favorite, like, wisdom, I guess, but I do think it's really good advice, especially given the situation, because, and I think she's also addressing the fact that, like, there's that age difference between them, and so she's like, if you want to, like, reconnect with him, just, like, kind of like think about like how you felt at that age, because they're not going through the exact same situation, but I'm sure they're going through something similar. And so that's like the best way, you know, that's one of the ways people naturally connect is whenever is going through hard times. And so, yeah, you're not going through it at the same time, but like you still went through it. And so that's a good way to like form that bond. So I think that's really like pretty solid advice, actually. Like, I think that's like great parenting advice too. It's like, especially like if you're, you know, an adult and you have a kid who's going through like puberty or like they're a teenager or something like that, because we were, you know, if you're a parent, obviously you were at that age at some point. So like you just kind of have to put yourself back into those shoes situation. So I think it's good. But I do like that she was just like, oh, like I don't want to like overstep my boundaries. I think that's very respectful. Which she's always like super respectful of people because she, you know, she's I wouldn't say that she's like super quick to give advice, but like she always gives good advice when she does. And but again, not everyone may want that advice. So that's just, I don't know. Toru's just being the best girl ever. So
right. What? But she's working so hard. I'm like,
yeah,
you need a break. You need like
more people stop coming, then she can have that break someday.
I'm just like,
we've got how many Zodiac members left?
Like, most of them still.
Like she keeps on giving, and I'm like, when is someone gonna give you something? You know, you need to let people give you stuff. But Michelle, did you feel that this part of the episode, because the show has its moments of being very exposition heavy, but did you feel it more forced in this episode than in other ones? Because at least for me, I thought he's just like laying out his entire life story to her, and they just met. And I mean, granted, he must have like heard stuff about her, obviously, because the entire Soma family apparently knows about Toru. But did you feel it was the just in terms of how the scene and just the episode itself was structured? Did you feel it was a bit forced? This kind of scene and this exposition that was given.
I think the first time you see it, it can feel that way a little bit, but I think the thing that stops it from feeling that way too much is by the time we get towards the end where he's like trying to implement Toru's sage advice, right? She's like, right, you're where you are in your life, Yuki's where he is, you can't meet him all the way, but you can meet him halfway. I think that's practical. It seems pretty reasonable. Halfway, you can do that. He's like, cool, yeah, I'm going to try. So he starts talking. He's trying to be like, okay, where's Yuki right now? He's in high school. I was in high school. Let me tell him about the stuff I did in high school. And that's where it's like totally just doesn't work out because the kind of personality he has is totally shocking these poor children. And it's not something Yuki can really relate to, even though he assumes it will. You get the sense while he's telling the story that, like, he kind of wanted to tell it anyway. I think Kyo has a line where he's like, he just wants to talk about himself or something. Like, I think he has this sort of personality where he's very extroverted. He likes to tell stories. He doesn't mind being the center of attention. And that's why he's a really good student president. So it's not a stretch knowing that later that he would be comfortable talking a lot about himself to Toru. One, because Toru is just a really good listener, so she gives him the space to do that. And two, like he's not like Yuki. Like I think it took Yuki a long time to share stuff because that's his whole personality. I feel like his brother's very opposite and he's a lot more comfortable sharing things. So I think like after I watched the whole episode, when I went back the second time, I was like, oh no, okay, like it makes sense that he would tell her. Like that's kind of his personality. He'd be more comfortable. So I buy it for sure.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, you've convinced me. Because you're right, and we'll talk about those stories. But something just very quickly, I'm starting to notice how much alike I am to Yuki because I just get I don't like being the center of attention, and I don't like when, like, I don't like it when, like, I don't even like people singing me happy birthday. Like, I don't like it. So the fact that and I feel like just based on this episode and previous stuff, like maybe Yuki's forced to deal with being the center of attention and that isolates him and we know the repercussions of that. But having someone who's so unabashedly unashamed of anything and like will talk about all the subject, all like the most things that like society tells you that you need to like keep hush hush. He's like, nope, sex, positivity, embrace everything. And Yuki's just like, what are you doing? You're drawing attention. Like I now understand Yuki a lot more. But let's talk about King Lulubara. Let's talk about this king that supposedly is how Aya just was able to get by with the length of his hair. Because this story was ridiculous. This story was wonderful. I mean, you both do understand who I'm referring to, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Because you were saying, and I was like, wait, like, did they forget about this guy?
I just like don't get how the school guy could be so obsessed with like, your hair color is not up to code and it's too long for our dress code. And he like doesn't care that his eyes are literally like yellow. Like, how are yellow eyes in the dress code of the school?
I don't, you're right. But I mean, maybe this again, and like we see this often with anime sometimes, like for instance, Sailor Moon is the most obvious example. You have this girl with blonde hair, blue eyes, but no one's like acting like no one's calling out like, why do you have blonde hair and blue eyes? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, maybe it's just meant for him to stand out. But they do reference the hair. I don't know if the eyes are, I mean, it would make sense. If they reference the hair, then the eyes should also be.
But what are they going to make them do? Like, put in like, you need to wear contacts, like...
Yeah. Maybe they think it's contacts, and they're like, take out the contacts. It's like, dude, they're not.
He's like, I can't, man. They're my only prescription ones I have.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Just sit there and poke yourself in the eye until they believe you that, like,
that's painful. That's painful. What I really like is how, at first, when he started telling, like, the story, I thought, this is, like, the snake charm. You know how sometimes snakes have this kind of, like, a lot of people have, make this assumption that snakes can sometimes be hypnotic. They can just, like, hypnotize you, mesmerize you, and get their way. So I was like, maybe this is the moment. And it's like, no, he just talked so much that the guy just got tired.
The guy had to run away.
Yeah, he was just like, yeah, you can have it. Just leave me alone. I'm busy. Well, that just shows you guys, confidence is key. Confidence is everything. You can sell anyone on anything.
That's literally how he became president, I'm pretty sure.
And then we have the story of the school trip. And I am so shocked that I'm really shocked that I don't remember him, because I feel like it was at that point where if he, in the manga, he said, I am a bottom, screaming that out loud, I should have remembered that. I feel like that should have been something I don't know. It's like shocking. But like when I saw that, when I heard him say it, like the cackling could be heard through the walls. I couldn't breathe for a couple seconds. It was the funniest thing because I knew that's where he was going, but I did not expect it to that degree.
He just like straight up and said it. Like there was nothing like confusing back. He wasn't holding back. He just said it in the plainest language he could.
Yeah.
Great. I love that.
Everyone was mesmerized in the room.
And I mean, I was not gonna lie, I was a little worried. I was like, oh god, like it's like an underage kid going to the pleasure district, like where are we going with this? Because I'm already nervous because of Shigure. And Shigure already being like, we're bored of that. I'm ignoring that.
It's like that already, like, dude, saying that means like so many sketchy things you've already done.
Yeah, but that's my question. I'm like, did he think that, or is it like, did he actually say that out loud? You know what I mean? I'm like, because we didn't see his lips. We didn't see him. Yeah. So I'm like, is this just you being like Shigure being Shigure, which is annoying. And then I was worried, but then the fact that he turned around and be like, dude, you can do it all on me. I am a bottom. And I'm like, oh man.
Dude. Okay.
Like, all right. Like, own it. You're owning it. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And then Yuki's reaction, like his face, just being
that
like,
was so funny. He has this like little smile. He's like, get out, and they just keep saying it in the background. He's so done. He can't handle any more stories.
And Toru just being like, oh no. I was like, because Toru's like entire like from cheering to like meltdown of like, oh no, which is really funny. And then we get the appearance of Hattori. He comes in. Hatsuharu oh, by the way, Ayame lives outside. We learned this from Momiji and Hatsuharu that he lives. Who lives inside?
I
my question.
Maybe it's just Akito and his creepy room he kept Yuki in for all those years.
What about Kagura? Like, is she inside?
Oh no! Our forest Fancy in the Zodiac. She might be outside too.
I don't know. I mean, she couldn't. I don't know. She wasn't allowed to live with them. So I'm like, well, then who are you allowed to live? Like, where are you? Where do you live?
She has to be living inside.
Yeah.
I feel like every time someone like lives outside, they make it a point to tell us.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So
yeah, like Momiji lives inside. Right?
Yeah.
Same with Haru.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, oh man, like who? I don't know. Every time I'm like, well, then who lives inside if everyone we know lives outside? But yeah. So Hattori arrives. Hatsuharu like noticed that Yuki was on edge and called Hattori. Called Hattori to go pick up Ayame. And what do you make of this relationship? Because it is. And this is why I'm like always so frustrated with like the word ski, which means like, but it's like it could mean like, it could mean like, it could mean love. Yeah. It's a very ambiguous term. And I hate that even if we have a character screaming, I am a bottom, and I still can't confirm nor deny it. Like I can't, I'm like,
what are you?
Someone could still wipe away being like, oh no, he's straight. And then I'm just like, it's very frustrating. But what do you make of like the Hattori and Ayame relationship?
I think it's adorable. Because I just love that like this like very like
stiff man.
Stiff.
Well, Hattori is the stiff man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I was gonna say, I love that like Aya, someone who's very excited and I had a better word, but vibrant.
Yeah.
Like Hattori comes around and he like reins it in, and like, but like he reins it in just enough to be like obedient. So he's like Hattori's like, we're going home, and he's like, I'm going home.
He's like, it's my idea. It wasn't his. I want to go home.
Yeah, like you go home. Like, hey, I mean, you go home. So I think that's just like, I just think that's adorable that he like clings to him just that much. I like it.
Here, before Michelle, before I get your thoughts on this. Where was Ayame during the whole episode with Hattori and his girl? Like, you would think if they're besties, if they're so close, then he would have been around.
I feel like
probably around. He just wasn't in those flashbacks that Hattori held on to Titus.
Or idea, he couldn't bear to be around them because he's in love with Hattori.
I don't like this trend of the actual gay characters always liking people who are straight. That's not.
I know. That's frustrating. It's frustrating. It is indeed. Mm-hmm. It is. I
don't
agree,
like that.
100%. It's frustrating, but yeah. So, what do you think, Michelle? Like, so you don't like the Hattori? No,
I mean their actual relationship's great. It's just like the little current of like Aya-san like maybe wanting more that makes me sad, but like their relationship for what it actually is, their friendship seems to be very important to both of them. They grew up together at the same age. Like all three of them, Shigure made that weird promise or whatever. They had some sort of, intense discussion at the age of 6 about something, and it made them sad. And Shigure went his way, and the other two guys went their way about it. I'm sure we'll find out what it is eventually. But, I mean, so, like, they all have a kind of weird bond together. Like, not weird in a bad way, but just, like, they have a special bond.
Yeah.
They have a unique bond.
Unique bond. They all have very different personalities, but they play off of each other very well, and they have this shared history. And I think, that's great. So, I mean, and honestly, like, when they were talking together, it kind of reminded me of how, like, the next gen really is, like, Toru, Yuki, and Kyo. Like, they're the new 3, same age, going through crazy Soma stuff. and it's all kind of repeating in a different way. And that's like kind of nice, like that they'll have something similar but different from what their elder mid-20-year-old guy friends will have. And that's cool.
Yeah.
So like I'm for it in general. It's just like I wish like every one of these poor gay men can find someone else who's gay and can love them back. That's all.
Right. Okay, so then let's talk about, because you're interesting that you make that parallel between like the different generations. The characters themselves make parallels amongst each other. Mm-hmm. So we have Ayame making a parallel between Hattori and Toru and what they mean to him and Yuki. So I'm like, okay, like Hattori is like likes Ayame likes Hattori. So it's like, will Yuki, like, is that, like, was that what you're saying? Is that, like, the type of relationship? And it's like, wait, but does that mean that it's gonna be the relationship that could have been, but isn't? Like, what does that mean? Like, what do you take from that parallel?
Whoa.
And then we have this other parallel, which is Yuki being the parallel between Hattori and Kyo, which is like, wait, so then it's like about like the progress of like, oh, like look how different they are, but they're still being able to meet halfway. So it's like, well, technically Toru's the one making the parallel between between Hattori and Kyo. And then we have also like internally, it's like, okay, is Yuki thinking about like his relationship with his brother and paralleling that with Hattori and his brother, or is it with Kyo? Like there's just so many parallels, and it's like, what does this tell us about the possibility of the Yuki and Toru romance coming into fruition? Is all I care about. Like tell me, what is
I'm glad you made it back to us.
like, how does this all relate? Is my question. I mean, it's fine. I know I give Kyo a hard time, but also, like, tell me, what are your thoughts
about which part?
Oh
yeah, there was a lot there.
all of it. Okay, like the parallel that Ayame makes between Hattori and Toru. Like, is that accurate? What do you think that says about Toru and Yuki's relationship?
I think that it's a really good comparison because it seems like Hattori really grounds Ayame and Shigure in the same way that Toru grounds like Yuki and Kyo. So I think that's like that comparison and that parallel makes a lot of sense, to me at least. So I really like that one. The parallel between Hattori and Kyo, I don't know if I see that one as much. I mean, maybe in the fact that they're both really reserved. So, yeah, I can see that one just a little bit. But in terms of, like, the relationship, I think it's just good. I think, like, Ayame's comparison is really good in terms of, like, the friendship between the three of them.
Yeah.
I kind of have, like, obviously, like, we're all Team Yuki. I'm still a little bit Team Kyo, but like, I like the idea of, like, in the end, all three of them are friends versus, like, someone having to end up with each other. Like, I think that's a really good,
the ultimate.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Shigure, Hattori, and Ayame have. Like, right? Like, they're all very close friends. None of them are paired off.
Yeah.
But they're always in each other's lives, and they're very important people in each other's lives.
Yeah.
Right.
So I like that end game for our main trio.
Yeah. So, Michelle, do you see? Because really, I guess like the parallel between like Hattori and Kyo is more like, oh, it's possible to have a friendship with someone that's so different from you.
Yeah,
so it's more. That's the parallel, I guess. It's not so much that they're alike, but more like, oh, the fact that Ayame can meet the other halfway. What does it say? What is this for? Does this foreshadow? Was this meant to foreshadow the Kyo Yuki relationship and that progress, or was it supposed to foreshadow the Ayame Yuki rift and whether or not it diminishes?
I mean, it could be both, though. I think
it could be both.
The nice thing I like about what Yuki says about his brother is like, well, like I still like feel weird about him, but I will admit, like the fact that he can admire Hattori for having qualities that he wants and see that's a good thing. Like, I think that's great. Like, I think that's a great thing for him to say. One, because he has complicated feelings to his brother already, and he can admire, like, he can acknowledge a good aspect of his brother's character. That's progress. But two, like, we've already established that a part of the rift between Yuki and Kyo is that they're jealous of each other for having things that they both wish they had in each other, in the other person. Instead of seeing it as a good thing that they want to learn from that person, they see it as like a thing that they just lack and feel kind of like bad about it. So I feel like if they could both shift their attitude, instead of thinking like, oh, like, you know, Kyo gets along with people so much better, or Yuki's good at everything, they're thinking like, wow, I really admire how Kyo gets along with other people and Yuki is good at things. Maybe I can learn to be better at that thing from the proxy of them, and they can help me. Like, that's the shift that needs to happen for them to become friends and to turn all that like rivalry into constructive growth on both sides. So like, I would hope that would be the foreshadowing that would happen with them. If they're gonna be friends, like, I feel like that's how it has to happen.
It's a long road ahead. There's a lot. It's there's a lot. There's still so much left. So do you guys have any closing thoughts on this episode? Because I think we covered most of it. I'll say that I really like how Saki was just like, oh, so he has like a men's pleasure shop or whatever it was she referred to it as. I like how she was straight up about it. Yeah. But yeah, that's my closing thought. That Saki remains being a queen, and she's awesome.
What it is. She has no illusions.
Nope. But what about you guys? Any last minute things you want to say before we finish off?
No. Just that I enjoyed this episode. It was fun.
Yeah.
And I love Ayame, so
no, he's gonna be fun to have back. I definitely have warmed up a lot more to Haru this time around, because he did a really good thing for Yuki. Like, he's been a lot more chill, and I think like I can appreciate his dark side more when we get a lot more of his like light side. Because then it doesn't feel so like, wait, what's happening? Are you always terrible? No, it's just sometimes, and it's fine because he does nice things for Yuki, and that's good. And he was a good friend to him this episode. And that's a lot. So good job.
And
Way to go.
Yuki thanks him. So he's learning to express himself.
Yeah, to someone who's not Toru, that's also great.
Yeah, that's progress.
Broadening his friend circle.
So proud. Our babies are growing up.
Which also, by the way, am I the only one who's noticing, like, if we compare Yuki in the first episode to Yuki now, he's growing. Like, he's taller. He seems he seems bigger, right? I'm not the only one who thinks that he looks bigger.
No.
Okay.
I think
he's standing taller with confidence in himself.
Yeah. I just find it. I just love when shows start showing characters' age, because sometimes it's like, because it's so tedious, you know, to animate that and make it in going out of your way to make those details come through. So it's like, I really appreciate the show for that. But yeah. All right, well, that does it for us. You can find out all the info on this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can join us on Discord to text chat about animation at overlyanimated.com/Discord. You can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Sam, aka Suitcase Sam. And thanks, as always, to our Patreon executive producers, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Beatrice, Hugh, and Michael. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.